Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Jane Wamboy. If you are just joining us, karibu tena sana. We are glad you are with us this morning. So today being Wednesday, as always, we always put focus on matters concerning the lifestyle segment. And today it is no different, only that we're going to be talking about a matter that is, has quite some weight. And we have a fantastic guest with us in studio this morning to help us better understand what it takes. But before I let you know what we are going to be talking about, our communication platforms ever remain open, and we'd love to hear from you to know where you're watching us from and how you are enjoying the show. For that matter, on Twitter, the hashtag ever remains Good Morning Kenya. Our official station handle is at KBC Television. My handle is Jane Wamboy, and of course, our SMS number is 20154. And if you choose to use Facebook, the page is KBC Channel 1 TV. Now, today, as I had mentioned on lifestyle, we're going to be looking at nurturing care, and this is all about looking at our children, aged between 0 to 3. What do we do when it comes to taking care of them, and how best do we go about nurturing them, as opposed to, the challenges that do come with nature. And, we have a fantastic guest with us in studio this morning. She is the First Lady of Siaya County, Her Excellency Rosella Rasanga, who is the patron of the 1,000 Days to Shine campaign, all about our children. Karibu sana.
Asante, Jane.
We're glad to have you this morning.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. So any questions, any comments that you feel you would like to be addressed in regards to this discussion, feel free to use the communication platforms that we have just issued, and we will be glad to address them as and when we receive them. Now, we just want to talk about this project that, you have been at the forefront championing all about our children. And before we even get to the project itself, we'd like to understand where the idea came from and why you chose, be part of this phenomenal movement that is all about our children. So maybe you could tell us a bit about the background into this project, 1,000 Days to Shine, and why children, aged 0 to 3.
Thank you, Jane. This idea actually was brought up by my husband, the governor of Siaya County.
Yes.
He had a chance to go to Harvard University for about a week to learn on early childhood development.
Yes.
And while there, he went with a few partners, PATH and KMET, and a few government officers. And when he came back, it was a life-changing moment for me and for the people of Siaya.
Okay.
Because in most cases, people believe that when you talk about ECD, early childhood development, is only when you are taking your children to preschool.
To school, yeah.
Yes, but there's more to it. And the 1,000 days are very critical in a child's life. And if you change the beginning of the story, actually you change the whole story.
Yeah.
And the 0 to 3 years, that is the 1,000 days that you are talking about, the 1,000 days to shine. If you don't nurture the baby well, then you lose that child. And science has it that 0 to 3 years is when the child's brain development grows very fast.
And it's critical.
And very critical.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that. So the 0 to 3 years, you'll find that if you don't nurture your children in those 5 components, of nutrition, responsive caregiving, then that child risks losing the development milestones that child would have gotten. So when they came back, they said, this agenda, who else can better push it forward and steer it forward? And none other, the team asked the governor, why can't you ask the First Lady to be our champion?
Yes.
And our patron for that matter, because they know when the governors being busy doing what they do best, the soft part of this campaign might lose out, and they needed an unstate actor, somebody who can bring together the mother, the face of a mother who can champion the whole cause. And that's why they asked me to be the patron. And when I learned, because I had materials that he came with from Harvard, I realized that there are so many things that we are doing, adolescent pregnancy, menstrual health, and, the things, challenges that we are grappling in the society. Actually, some of them is because that we never had the best start in life.
They're rooted in such issues.
Yes, the best start in life. So if you don't have the best start in life, then there are some issues that you are going to grapple with even
along
in the future along the journey.
Now, yes. When you look at, even the population, let's talk about Siaya County. Do you feel like even as the parents that are there, do we really understand the necessity and the importance that, early childhood care requires before we get to send our children to school? Because most of the time we think, as long as they're fed, they have clothes, they're good to go. Do you think there's some sense of ignorance among the population when it comes to this early childhood care?
A lot of it, and me too included. That is the start, the sad state of affairs, because we also realize that when my child has grown, I'll take my child to the best school, nursery school, not realizing that early learning starts from conception, because that is when the brain development, they don't need much. And because science has proved it. Science has proved it that when the baby is in the womb, they touch and they feel and they talk, that you can talk with the baby in the womb.
They're responsive too.
Yeah, it's very responsive, because there's neurons in the brains that now are, because I'm not very good in science, but because science has proved it, that the brain develops very fast at that stage.
There is communication
already. There is communication already.
Yeah.
And when the baby is born, even 1 month, and you give responsive caregiving, and especially good feeding, exclusive breastfeeding, because those are some of the components. But the component that people never realize is the responsive caregiving and the stimulation part of it. Because we always imagine, I've fed the baby and I've kept the baby is quiet and the baby is fine.
Change the diaper, akosawa.
Akosawa. Not realizing that there's a lot of play, talk, engagement, which are very critical in that brain development. So when we realize that and we said, how can we start well?
Yeah.
And that's why we started the Smart Start Siaya project. The Smart Start Siaya project is what is driving the agenda for nurturing care in Siaya County, so that we create awareness in all parents, because as much as we were educated, yes, but we realized that there's a component which is very critical that we are leaving behind, and that is bonding with our own children when they are very young.
Yeah.
And that's why even parents now in this stage, because we are realizing that male involvement is not so much. And in this a project that we are doing, we are really campaigning so that the men, they are involved in when their wives are pregnant. At some point, they are even able to, to talk to their babies when they are in the womb, physical contact, because most of them, when they try as much to keep off. Only when the baby has started talking, they'll talk, or maybe take the baby to school, or the child to school, or when the baby, is able to respond.
You find the involvement comes a bit later.
Yeah, a bit late in life.
As opposed to when, it was critical for it.
Yes.
Now, just looking at, this situation as it is in the market, let's just look at this terms of employment that are there for most people, for most parents who are working. You find that, when it comes to maternity leave, most ladies have just 3 months. And, fathers get to have 2 weeks paternity leave. Looking at some of this challenge, do you feel those are the areas, some of the areas that need to be looked at to sort of redirect the conversation towards nurturing care and its vitality when it needs both parents being involved? Do you feel like that is enough time that is given to fathers and mothers to even bond with this newborn at that point?
For me, I think that is something, and that is enough time.
Yeah.
It's only that even sometimes when you have that time, you are not engaging with your children.
You
are busy on phones, and we can even see children crying out for attention from their parents, because we don't have much time. Either we are going to Chama. If you are not in Chama, we are busy doing other things. And maybe if it is Sunday, we have taken them for an outing and they're just playing, but we don't have time to talk. We don't have time to sing. We don't have time to engage.
Yeah.
And this is not a new concept, because it's something that used to happen during our forefathers' time. And Jenna will tell you, in my own situation and own scenario, because I said for me it was a life-changing moment, because I realized that, because I would have my own babies, yes, but I never realized that a 1-month-old baby I can talk to, I can sing to, but I could see the grandmother, being engaged with the baby, singing and talking. I would wonder, why is she talking to this young child? That baby cannot ask it. So what is all this?
Yeah.
Not realizing that some of these things our parents, our grandparents did them. And the kind of society that we had siblings, we had grandparents, and children would play. These days, children don't play.
These days,
they are given phones
everywhere.
and they're given gadgets, and there's no interaction.
Yeah.
So we are losing out on our children.
Now,
so much.
Even as you went out to just talk to the people about this issue that is there with nurturing, how was the response among the population, at least in your county? Were they open to it, just wanting to know more, or there was some sort of resistance? Because, you know, as, you know, parents will always argue, I have to work for this child, I have to give them food, I have to provide for them, so I can't always be there to spend that time with them. How was the response when you're going out, at least interacting with the people?
The response is very good. Extremely good, because one thing I will tell you, Jane, is that when you go back to your own house and you realize that there are critical elements in a child development that will also impact on the future of that child,
yes,
you would want to do the best for that child. Because why are we working? We are working for the best interest of the child.
Yes.
And now if I even come to the government side, because in our conversations with the people of Siaya, we have taken various groups who are dealing with the children, because a child is brought up holistically. A child is not brought up in the health department or in the education department, because we initially would think that or it's a parent's issue. No, it's also a government issue.
Yeah.
It makes a great economic sense to invest in early childhood development, because the return on investment, like if you invest $1, the return in investment is about, you know, $13. That if you invest in 100 shillings, the return in investment is 1,300. When you invest early, it means that you reap big if you invest in a child early. And no parent gives birth, you know, to a child and hates that child. You love that child and you want the best for that child. And the aspect of the issue that brain development is very critical for that child, because we want a child who is, you know, whole, who can reach or realize his full potential. Then it means that I would do the best for that child. And what are these things that you can do as a parent? We know there are issues of good nutrition that some of us give, although some of us don't, because of the issues of poverty. And we also have the issues of good health. We know that we take our children either to good hostels or the hostels that are available. For the government, what can they do? Is to provide the good services or proper service to those children. We have the issues of early learning, the ECD parts that we are talking about, because we know that we have always believed, and by the way, sometimes when you talk to the media, you start talking to the media, they believe that how many schools? We are not talking about schools. We are talking about children who need to start learning early. When that brain is developing, how can we engage? Because it also helps in the cognitive skills, you know, building the
engaging
cognitive,
as early as possible.
Engaging as early as possible. And this is what we want for our children. And what does the government want? Because the government is out to bring prosperity and development. And there's no other better way. If your human resource is well developed, it gives you an easy work, because when even for you as a parent, when you take a child to school, it is easy for that child to grasp, integrate and also to grasp the learnings. Otherwise, you'll always take your children to tuition, and this is what we keep on doing, because it means that the early life will never start early. So back to your question, Jane, it means that if we want the best for our children, we just need to start early, because Harvard is one of the leading universities in the world, and they have done research. And when they give the research findings that you start early with the child, and because they also showed us the way the neurons in the brain behave when there's interaction with the baby from conception, it means then, therefore, that for us to start well, because some of these problems that we are now facing in the country or in the world, and mostly in the country, and even Siaya, for example, the issues of maybe teenage pregnancies, the issues of drug abuse, some of these things that we are now grappling with are as a result of not taking care of the early part.
The early childhood phase, because we
yeah.
take it for granted
Yes.
so much. And not just looking at even the health sector, and maybe you could just let us know what more needs to be done when it comes to the health sector, and the fact that, you know, health is now devolved, because
Yes.
you know that there is such a vital anchor when it comes to the health sector. You know, just looking at it, use an example, Siaya County, it was among the 10 counties that were had their, what were they called, health indicators were at least very low in Kenya.
Yes.
Do you feel that, you know, a multi-sectoral approach that involves such sectors of the government, like the health, could go a long way in just helping bring up these health indicators, especially for these children?
Yes, for Siaya, what we are doing, we also realize that the health indicators have never been so good, and especially for Siaya. But we are now strengthening. We have the systems to strengthen them. We just need now to strengthen those systems and the structures that are already available. And for us in this nurturing care business, we have health workers. Most of the health workers have been undertaken. They've been taken through the course for early childhood development, and they are quite aware, and they are integrating all their services, nurturing care, and some of their policies have also been changed to include nurturing care. And one thing that we have done so well, because for Siaya we have almost 100% coverage of community health workers. That means that each and every household is covered by a community health worker. And if we want anything or any data or any indicator that we want to track, then it's very easy for us to get it through the community health workers. And we are using them so much because almost all of them have now been trained so that they are able to identify children who have like low development milestones, or who have challenges, or who
those
have
health indicators are wanting.
Health indicators that are wanting. But for the aspect of nurturing care, we have trained them, and they go to communities because they know which household there's a pregnant woman who gave birth when, and they have trained. And even in health facilities, because I've not talked about the multi-sectoral team that we are having. We are partnering with various partners that are dealing with children, like PATH, like KEMET, like UNICEF, and Child Fund, and Catholic Relief Services, and Plan International, AMREF, name it. And with all other departments. For me now, being the coordinator, I coordinate all of them, because we come together, we realize that a child, you cannot deal with a child in just one department. And in this setup, we also have the Department of Public Works, because you realize, Jane, that most of our playgrounds, by the way, if you remember, they were grabbed. We don't have public spaces where children can even play. And also we realize that some of the plans that we are having or programs that we are having, we don't even put children into mind when we are putting up buildings. And you remember also, even as parents, some of us, you build a house and just next, maybe children are playing and you chase them away. You go away, not realizing that children need to play. Play is an integral part of brain development for children. And some of us do not even realize that. So we realized, even as for Siaya County, how do we come together so that we recognize that everything we do, we have to put the child into focus. We have the agriculture department, the issue of nutrition. How can they teach parents and caregivers on how to, grow nutritious foods for children? We have the Department of Health. As I said, we know health definitely because of humanization, exclusive breastfeeding, and general health of children. Department of Education too. And we also have the national government, and especially the chiefs and the assistants, because they are very critical. And the issue of safety and security for children, because you realize that sometimes our children, and especially with the advent now of teenage pregnancies, we find many children are abandoned, neglected, maltreated. So how do we provide safety and security for our children? The environment in which some of our children are growing are so stressful. And because when they grow in such an environment, there's so much domestic violence, and domestic violence affects children. As children grow into that kind of environment, you can imagine what we are now seeing. Some of these things we are now seeing now, we will reflect back on how we were brought up. The root is somewhere. So how can we change this whole scenario? And that's where we have started Smart Start, and we realize that some of these problems, we just can't keep on complaining and crying and firefighting. Why don't we start early? So we have started early, and I believe some of the benefits we may not see now, we'll see them in the future. 20, 30 years, yes. But we have to change the tide.
Yeah.
And this is what we are doing.
No.
So if we have to do it, we'll do it. So our voices, my voice, and every other voice is very critical. And some of the things that we started doing is to gain political goodwill. And that is bringing out the county assembly members, because we train them and they realize it's very critical. So how do we make investments? So investing, if there's any investment that we need to do, the environment is very, very conducive for us. And that's why when we took them for training, I remember one time, I think the governor had put some budget for nutrition, for milk, and it was not, you know, sometimes we think roads are so important, or other buildings like hostels. Then they said, no, this one is not very important. But when we took them to training, they said, yes, we didn't know. So now, if you bring it back, then we are going to pass it. And some of the members of the county assemblies, in their budgets, they have nutrition for ECD. It started to be a priority to all of them. So what we want is a whole government approach, political goodwill. How can the county government lead? Because in this program, we are not saying that it's partners, because partners were there before. But the fact that now it's the government leading, it means that this program, even after my tenure, it is something that will be sustainable. Because for me, we are just trying to advocate that what are the best policies that we can put so that we continue.
It's not just about you
it's
now.
not about me, no.
The longevity plan is inside. Okay.
And it's about everybody. All actors are involved. And I mentioned even the chief, the national government in the county, because we know that they play a very important role. Each and every person plays a very important role. Okay. Because we cannot just leave it to parents, because some of these things we just have to help the caregivers, because sometimes we know they are also vulnerable.
Parenting itself is not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, yes.
And that also brings in, another aspect of the population that has a very integral role to play, and this is the religious side of the divide. Faith and health are among the key factors that, affect people on a very personal level. And maybe you could let us know how the religious leaders are being involved in this whole project to just keep it going, so that, it's not just about teaching at home or in hospitals. Even when you go to church, your religious leader understands why it is important to nurture these children in this way, because, we cannot just leave it all to parents, as you've mentioned.
I'm happy, Jane, that you are catching up the bag, because the religious leaders are one of the integral parts. Because we've been going through groups, the religious leaders is the last group that we are targeting to train come next year. We have done with them just a few sessions, but we are calling on all religious leaders to be part of this, because we realize that as much as we talk, families are having problems. And because we say almost, is it 90% of Kenyans are Christians? Yeah. And most of them also go to churches. And this is where we can get our caregivers. So religious leaders form a very integral part in this campaign, because the issue of mental health, of even caregivers, domestic violence is a problem. So how can they come in and also assist in this agenda that you are pushing forward for nurturing care? Yeah.
All right. Now, for the parents who might be wondering, okay, we're talking about nurturing care, but we don't really know how to go about it. And let's talk about some key areas that, that I saw that this project is really focusing on. And this really involves the parents and, the talk, touch and play. Now, when it comes to touch, most parents wonder, okay, how do I go about it? Especially our fathers, because they always think, hey, this one is too fragile. That's when I'll start, involving myself more. But when it comes to just simple ways to go about this touch and play and talk, how would you even advise our parents out there who are wondering how to go about that and in a safe way?
It's just as simple as most things that we ignore, even in life. And I would say when a woman has conceived and the baby bump is, on.
Showing.
You have a partner And that partner, once in a while when the baby kicks, you touch, you talk. And Jane, when you give birth to that child, and we always tell people that when you give birth to that child, because this has also been proven in science, if the father would come home drunk and abuse the wife or beat up the wife or make noise, sometimes as they would make noise when they are drunk, when that baby is born, and the baby will recognize that voice.
Those sounds.
And those sounds say, oh, this is that voice that I used to hear when I was, because we always say that the, I don't know, I'll say it, the fetus is a baby outside. The fetus is a baby outside the womb. So there's that touch, and that is the beginning. And we encourage male involvement. We start by encouraging the male when the baby is, there's a baby bump. And we know that some of us do and some of us don't, because there's that, that there's when you are pregnant, you really have to keep off. So there's, you touch and you play. And if you are a good husband, you'll always rub on your wife's tummy and talk to that baby. You'll be a great man, you know, you'll be a great lady, you'll be a pilot or doctor or what, a nurse or a teacher, whatever. When the baby is born, the touch of love is always there, the hands and cuddling and hugging and kissing if you can, because you know we always kiss our babies, yeah?
Yes.
We do. Those are very important. They are mundane things, but they are very important, as they say, for even brain development. And I also believe, even as people who are our age, when somebody touches you, you feel good.
Yeah.
When somebody hugs you, you feel good.
What about
you feel
the
even
child?
better. What about the child? The child feels love, a lot of love. And these are some of the things that our children are now lacking, because they are crying out for love and they're not finding it, because we are so busy in a rat race looking for, you know, foods. But again, one big challenge that we are now having is the issue of teenage pregnancies. So before I even come to that, because you asked me about play, play is very important.
Yeah.
It's good to play with your children. I know you can play ball, you can play hide and seek. Children love it. For those who have young children who are out there hearing what I'm saying, try it at home.
Yeah.
This is not one of those wrestling matches that they say, don't try this. But for me, I'll tell you, try this at home. And you'll see the benefits, and you'll start seeing the interactions. I did this because right now my children are big, although I always say, even Governor, when he came back, he said, oh, maybe if we had done more, then maybe our children will be somewhere, you know, because now you start recalling, did I do even some of these things?
Yeah.
But again, we had the benefit of our grandparents and the society the way it was, because even if we didn't do it, the kind of setup that we had helped us with our children, because if you're not there to do it, maybe you have, there's another caregiver, a grandparent or an uncle or a sibling. So we have singing too, because I saw this singing. You sing to children, and even reading.
Yeah.
For some of us who read books, you find those people in the westernized worlds, they read to their babies, and they have just pictures. Even if they can't read, they just have pictures, and you show children. It is very important.
Yeah.
So if we realize that it's important for the brain, then we really need to go back to the basics and do it, because it will help us.
And you know, I was actually having a conversation with someone about children, and somebody actually said, you know, when it comes to children, it's not always about what you say to them, but how you make them feel.
Yes.
That is why when you spank a child, they will cry and still come back to you, especially if you're the mother or the parent. You pinch them, they will cry, but they will still come back to you, because they associate love with you. However you make a child feel, that is how they will respond to you. At that early age, they cannot talk, but they can respond to love. Show them love, they will respond to that love. But show them hate, and you know that you don't want them close to you, they will respond to that. That's why people always wonder, kwa nini unaenda kusalimia mtoto na anakukataa? Sometimes it's just because of the vibe you're projecting, and children are quick to pick up these energies. Now, before let's just go back to the conversation, just look at, you know, the challenges that, you know, you have also encountered, because I believe it hasn't just been a smooth road all along. And you just mentioned, you know, the whole issue of teenage pregnancy. It is among the challenges that, you know, has been across the country and even Siaya County for that matter. How are you trying to even involve these younger girls who are still children, but they are also having children? And, you know, for most of them, they might be going through a very hard time, depression, they could be opting for other things. So how are you trying to even involve these young girls who have, you know, gotten themselves in those situations?
Yeah, for us, what we are doing in Siaya, we have taken it up head on, the issue of teenage pregnancies. Just as the way we are doing on nurturing care, we decided that we are not going to do it so much under nurturing care, because it's a whole lot big of it's a big problem, because actually we are number 2 in the country. Our rates are very high, and as young as 10 years, 13, those are children. They're not ready for parenthood. They are not ready, even their bodies are not ready, even their mental health cannot even take it. So first, we are trying to curb the issue of teenage pregnancies, bringing all sectors also together, to the magistrate, to the prosecutor, and everybody else. And also really having a conversation, how can we tackle this issue, because it's a big monster in Siaya, by the way. And the conversation we have had with all sectors, even the children themselves, and they say, one major thing they said, the children themselves, the teenage, they said that our parents don't have time for us. So do we blame the parents? The parents also blame the children.
So they
blame, there's a blame, everybody's finger pointing at the other. And you know, the security agencies, sometimes there are people who also point at them that when we get because we know the Sexual Offences Act is there. And when you are taken to court, if you defile a child, then you know your case will go to court. But most of them don't even reach there in the first place. And they don't reach there because there's also always a compromise. Sometimes also people don't follow because they don't have money to start following all those things. So how can we help our children first to avoid? There are so many things that we have now done, and there are sectors that we are bringing together. And they have agreed, because we also have chiefs that the reporting, people don't report some of these things. And we have come up with plans on how we can curb those teenage pregnancies have already started. And when we go back to nurturing care, because we are, if I talk about the teenage pregnancies alone, I'll take this 1 hour, because we're here to talk about nurturing care. We realize that these are babies, these are children, and they'll need services in future. But have they been brought up well? Do these children have the capacity of bringing up these children to realize their potential? Because in most cases, when you get pregnant, and you did not want to get pregnant, already that child is unwanted. That child feels rejected, unwanted. And so nurturing care cannot happen. And in most cases, the children themselves don't have time. They don't even have the means of taking care, good care of those children. So what are we saying? These children will come out to the world, and maybe they'll start becoming a problem. So we are saying, as much as they have gotten pregnant, yes, but how can they help? How can we help them? Because we have forums. There are organizations like KIMET that are working with teenage moms, you know, so that they also, as much as now it has happened, that is a child, and that child can reach his full potential.
And life doesn't have to stop there.
And life doesn't stop there. So we have programs for them. See, Catholic Relief Service is also having a program with teenage mothers. And the Siaya County, as a county and as a government, providing, you know, good services through the community health workers to also allow them, because you see, when you are pregnant, some of them don't even access clinical services. They don't go for
antenatal clinics.
Antenatal clinics. They don't go. And when they go to antenatal clinics, they go when it's very late. And so at some point you realize that, so as we focus on our babies, we realize these babies that are brought up with teenage pregnancies, teenage girls, how can we take good care of them? Okay. And at the same time, try and seek redress for some of them who want to take up their cases in court. Okay. We have good support even from the prosecutor, and he said, when we see these numbers that you are showing us here, those numbers, these are potential criminals that should belong to jail. Instead of wandering free? Yes, instead of wandering free, yes. Okay.
Now, another area that, could be a challenge and also part of the solution is when it comes to involving our teachers, and especially when it comes to sexual and reproductive health for our young girls. Do you feel we are doing enough or talking to our children about, their sexuality, their reproductive age early enough, or we are waiting until it's too late to just initiate these conversations with them, because it is also part of the chain that is leading to, these early pregnancies?
Yeah, we are doing it too late. Because as I said, when you start early, and we have had some of these things are like when we do examples, when we are going around with some of our champions, and they'll give live examples, because some of these things we live with them at home. When I say that when a child is brought up early, when you start early with a child, investing in a child early, it means that there's the cognitive abilities of the child, knowing that this is right and this is wrong, is already there. The confidence that a child has is already there, because the brain has developed to its full capacity. We said 0 to 3 years, 80% brain development has already occurred. When it reaches 5 years, it's about 90-something. So these others, about 8% or 10% is what we get in our environment. So can you imagine, Jane, that the capacity for your brain, it was 0 to 3 years and maybe up to 5 years. These others unapata kwa shule, kwa walimu, and the rest, the environmental factors. So why don't we start early? And I wanted to give you an example of one of our champions who we were going around, and he was saying that there's something he realized with, he's a caregiver to a young girl of about 4 years. Okay. And that girl would go to school, and there's a teacher in school, who'd put arms around her and said, Jaber. Jaber in English is a beautiful girl. And this child, because they interact so much with the caregiver, she would go back and play, because if you don't talk to your child, you wouldn't know things that are happening. Even this kind of defilements that we hear about is because we don't have time for our children even to engage. Because the child will come and be happy and say, Daddy, there's a teacher who asks, what is Jaber? Then you ask, who said you are Jaber? Ati, my teacher. And he said, well, does he call other children Jaber, other girls? No, it's only me. Then your feelers starts going up. There's something wrong.
Why?
Why is it? Yeah, and you see that already the kid is as young. And let me tell you, children are very bright.
Very. Oh, they are.
It's only us adults, we start putting them down when they have grown. And I can also, so when his feelers started going up, that is when now he went to school and asked the teacher. It means that that child was a potential
victim of some situation.
Yes, of that situation. So what we are trying to say here is, when you start engaging with your children early and being interactive and responsive to the cues and the needs of that child, it's very easy for the child, and the child knows what is good and what is bad.
Yes.
What is right
and
what is wrong. Because that child has the capacity of absorbing and seeing issues. Because for me, I know children are very bright.
They're very bright.
Very bright. It is us adults, when a child starts walking, you say, walk, walk, walk. Then after some time, when the child walks, you say, sit down. Yeah, what have you done? You have started putting that child down. So they grow up very bright, then we start putting them down. No, this is wrong. Don't play. You'll dirty your clothes. Yeah. Come and sit down.
And the thing with children, and this is a sad reality that, most of those people who take advantage of children, they're always people who the children are familiar with.
Yes.
The people who this child trusts.
Yes.
So if you don't talk to your child, if you don't open that channel of communication where they feel they can tell you anything, it only hinders them from, you know, being a child and living with these issues and these traumatizing thoughts and situations that you as a parent have no idea of until much later in future when some of these memories start resurfacing and they start sharing with you and you're wondering, where did that even happen?
Yes.
Why did it happen? And yet I've been here along the journey.
Yeah.
So we need to start talking to our children as parents, in as much as, justifiably so, we have to work. We have to feed our children. You have to put in the hours, but it's about making time.
Yeah.
And also when it comes to now the employers, you know, just also allowing some of these programs into their workplaces. Do you feel that could go a long way in also empowering the parents as well? Just because you cannot always get this information at home or in your area gatherings, you can also get this source of this information at your workplace. Do you feel that will go a long way in just helping the parents become more aware on the vital role that nurturing has to play on their children?
Yes, Jen. I think, as I said before, that this one we need a concerted effort because these problems we are all dealing with, the issues, the societal issues at our different levels, and even as media, because we also trained our media in Kisumu. Okay. We didn't do for Nairobi, but we thought that we need to amplify voices. Everybody needs to be in the bus. For us, we said we have a bus, that everybody is in the bus, because the fact that we are ignorant, how can we make all the people aware in whatever sector or whichever forum? And that's why we are engaging all sectors so that they become champions. And as I mentioned, even we have our chiefs, and when we had our training for chiefs, they became our greatest ambassadors. Religious leaders will become our greatest ambassadors because it all affects us. And if we are tackling issues at some level and we realize that there are some missing links, because this is a missing link, but for me, I always believe in, because I was doing other programs on mentorship and the rest, I said, okay, if this other one for ECD is the game changer for everything, then let me start early. And that's why I focus so much early. And I said, all efforts is an action for government, is an action for family, is an action for everybody, including the media. And the media more so that we, you know, you have a way of amplifying things, and once you realize that it's important, then I think we are getting in the right direction.
We'll all be on board.
Yeah, we are all be on
now,
board.
for some of our viewers who are wondering how they can be part of this movement, I know it's not happening in all the counties, but Siaya is among the counties that are at the forefront championing for these projects. Maybe you could just, I know you have mentioned some of the projects that, you know, they have been laid down to just keep this campaign going, but maybe you could go through that again, some of the projects that are ongoing and how everyone out there can get involved in one way or the other to just help bring up a better generation of children.
Maybe there's something also that I needed to mention is that globally, Siaya is in the forefront. We are learning university for even some countries. We have gone to international forums where Siaya is one of the counties that is implementing the nurturing care framework. On how to nurture our children, because some of these sustainable development goals will just be found when we go back to the basics, as I mentioned before. And for us, we are trying also to expand it. We cannot just say that we are the best, but we are trying, and it has been recognized that Siaya is trying, because we have engaged with other countries that are also trying. And so most of them are still on the issue. When they talk of early childhood development, they believe that it starts in school,
at age
preschool.
3.
They'll just talk about education. And I said, we are also some of those people who believed that was so. So there are other counties that have come for benchmarking, like Turkana. We are now doing Kisumu, and I had an opportunity also. We had a training. The Aga Khan Foundation trained all almost all the first ladies, county first ladies, so that some of them can also scale up ECD in their counties. And we want it to be a very great movement in this country, because even as we said, our children, because we've been focusing on our children's survival, and I want to applaud the first lady of the nation, Mama Margaret Kenyatta, because she's been one of the proponents of child survival. So what we are saying here is that even as our children survive, we need children who can thrive.
It's not just about surviving.
Yes, it's not just about
as well.
Yeah, and thriving as well. And it's not only for Siaya County, it just needs to be for the whole country. Because if we go back to the basics, as I said, then there'll be so much prosperity. Because I mentioned that when you invest just a little money on early childhood, you know, when you change when you start early, then you are good to go with our children. You reap the whole benefits of the children in their growth and in their milestones. Yes.
And they always say, what you sow is what you will reap.
Definitely, precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So as we bring the conversation to a close, maybe what would be your advice to all the parents out there, all the teachers, religious leaders, our healthcare givers, our clinicians, anyone who has a role to play when it comes to a child's life? What would be your word of advice to them?
My word of advice is in whatever sector that we are in, as you mentioned, that we need to create a conducive environment for our children to thrive. It pains me when we find in our society we have neglected our children. You go out there and you cry because we don't have time for them.
Yeah.
We just don't have. And if we have, because you can also see that when children have closed school, parents are crying that all these 2 months, what are we going to do? What does that show you? Is that it shows that we have abdicated our responsibility. So it means that we need to take care of them because they are priceless. They are our future generation. So whoever is involved with children in whatever sector, let's help them. And for religious leaders, as I mentioned, that we are having so much violence in the society that is uncalled for. We are finding men or women harming children, killing children, and it has been awash in the media so much. The depressing news that we receive every day is so depressing. And if you go out there, you'll find the situation is much, much worse than what we see in the media. So why don't we, if we want a better future for our children, or this for anybody else, or even for us, because a society that is coming 20 years, 30 years down the line, if we don't take action now, the cost of inaction actually is very high.
It is very high, and we're going to pay it.
And we are going to pay for it.
All right. Yes. Now, before we actually wind up, there's a message here from Christian who says, thank you so much for what you are doing. We appreciate what you are doing. Please talk to all those parents who always go leaving their children at relatives' houses in the name of Kutembea and its family. Especially those young children. You find, especially now that we have this long holiday, you find that, you know, wakifunga shule, you just take them to this relative and you're not keen to find out if are they safe, but the fact that it's at a relative's place, you think they are safe.
They are not. They are not. And I had an example just the other day. I've seen it with one of my granddaughters, and I would say who. She just abandoned her children with me, and the child had been sick for 2 months, for about 2 days. This is something that is happening, and later we are going to cry. As I said, the cost of inaction, if we don't, I don't know why we are doing that, because when you give birth to a child, you want the best for that child. And if they don't do it now, they'll cry later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's also another message here that has brought in, you know, let me just read it as it is. Shimali, who says, we should also take time to teach our nannies and our house helps how to take care of these children, because how we treat even these nannies will determine how they treat our children.
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely.
Also, when it comes to investing in your house help and your nannies, as you choose to, you know, invest in your child as well, is that a priority to start with? for most people, would you advise them to always be involved with their nanny as you try to get involved with your child as well?
I think everybody else who is a caregiver to your child, you have to be very concerned on how that nanny or any other person who lives in your house, how they are treating your children. Because as I said, the 1,000 days, we should not leave space for anything else or any poison to poison your child.
Yes.
Because if you bring a nanny who is going to maltreat your child, then it's going to affect the brain development of that child.
Yes.
You'll find that child may not, you know, develop to his or her full potential. And this is what we are saying. I don't think 3 years is so much. 3 years is not much.
They go by
but
so
even
fast.
after those 3 years, you are going to be very happy engaging with your child who can, you know, engage so well with you.
All right.
Yes.
And there's also another message here from Nyarieko who says, treat your nanny well. They spend so much time with your child, and yet you do not know what impact they have on your child. So all the mothers and fathers out there who may have, you know, a nanny, don't just take them for granted as well. They have a very vital role to play in their bringing of that child when they are very young, especially when they are learning how to sit, to crawl, to walk, and they spend so much time with these children. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We absolutely appreciated your time for being with us, and we wish you all the best as you continue on with this campaign.
Thank you, Jen.
Do you have any social media handles which our viewers can always interact with you if they have any ideas that could go a long way in helping keep this campaign going?
Yeah, we have a Facebook account, Nurturing Care.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you can get in touch with them if you feel you have a project or an idea that could also contribute towards this project, all in just benefiting our young children. Please go ahead and reach out. And I believe our mother here will be glad to just take on such ideas that will help and build towards this campaign. That brings us to a close of this discussion, but do keep the conversation going. The hashtag is still Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Television. My handle is Jen Wambui. Facebook page, KBC Channel 1 TV. And our SMS number is 20154. Do stay with us. We'll be right back with more interviews. Don't go anywhere.